All right, so you think you know the story of Frankenstein. Today, we're going to flip the script on this classic horror tale, and we're going to do it through the eyes of one of history's most radical philosophers. We're exploring a poetic prelude called Spark, Rust, and Ruin. And trust me, it reframes the whole story in a powerful and honestly a pretty shocking new light.
So let's get right into it. This prelude is written in the style of the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Think of it as a poetic gateway that doesn't just want you to read the story, it wants you to question everything about it. It asks us to see Victor Frankenstein and his creation not just as a mad scientist and his monster, but as huge symbols of ambition, failure, and the very nature of morality itself.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. The poem has this brilliant structure, and it actually follows Nietzsche's own framework of jest, ruse, and revenge. It's like a three-act philosophical journey that builds and builds to this absolutely devastating conclusion, which the poem calls the mirror's trap. First up, we have the jest. Now, when Nietzsche talks about a jest, he's not just talking about a simple joke. It's more of a philosophical cheerfulness, a way of looking at the world with this incredible creative energy. The poem kicks things off by completely reframing ambition, not as some terrible sin, but as a fundamental, even beautiful force of nature.
The poem just throws down the gauntlet right from the start with this incredible invitation. It's basically telling us, hey, forget what you've been told about sin. Let's look at the raw, driving force that's inside every living thing. This hunger, this innate desire to grow, to create, to exert its power on the world.
And this gets us to a huge, huge concept in Nietzsche's world, the will to power. Now, don't get hung up on the name. This isn't about being cruel or dominating people. It's about the fundamental urge of life itself to express itself, to become more, to overcome challenges. And in our story, it's the creative spark that is burning inside Victor Frankenstein.
But wait, just as we're celebrating this awesome creative drive, the poem slams on the brakes and points its finger right at Victor. It absolutely mocks him. Not for having ambition, no, but for being way too weak to handle it. He had the fire, but he didn't have the strength to control it.
And this is where the contrast becomes crystal clear. You've got the Übermensch, or Overman, which is Nietzsche's ideal, someone strong enough to create their own values and embrace the consequences of their actions, no matter what. And then you have Victor. He is a total failure. He's what Nietzsche might call a higher man. Someone with all the potential in the world who just crumbles, running away from the very thing he brought to life.
So, we've seen the failure of the individual. Now let's zoom out for the second part, the ruse. Here, the focus shifts from Victor's personal failure to the collective failure of the entire world that he and his creation are trapped in.
And this forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. I mean, if Victor is the deadbeat dad, what does that say about the society that then rejects his child? Is its morality actually based on strength and compassion, or is it just based on fear?
The poem paints this chilling picture of society as a valley of the sleepers, and it's populated by what Nietzsche terrifyingly called the last man. These are people who have just given up on greatness. They want only one thing in life, comfort. No risks, no challenges, no surprises.
You know, The Last Man is Nietzsche's ultimate cautionary tale. It's not about being evil. It's about being small, timid, and completely allergic to anything new, challenging, or different. They want a life with zero risk, and in the process, they smother any chance for real creation or progress.
And this is the ruse. It's a complete deception. This society thinks it's moral just because it's peaceful, but it's a sham. Its morality isn't born from virtue. It's born from fear. They build walls to keep out anything that might disturb their cozy little lives. It's a morality that's secretly based on terror.
Okay, now for the third and final act, the revenge. And this is where the perspective shifts, big time. We're asked to look at the world from the creature's point of view and to understand the cold, hard logic behind its rage.
This is such a powerful metaphor. The creature's initial spark of life is like a powerful river, just naturally flowing towards connection, towards understanding. But what does society, this valley of the last men, do? It builds a dam of fear right in its path. And that energy, it doesn't just disappear. It stagnates. It turns toxic.
This leads us to another key idea from Nietzsche, ressentiment. It's what happens when that blocked, frustrated energy turns inward and becomes a sort of creative vengeance. You start to define your values based on your hatred for the very thing that rejected you. It's vengeful, it's reactive, and it is powerful.
So you can see exactly how the prelude says a monster is truly made. It isn't born evil, it starts with this natural energy, then it faces total, absolute rejection, and that energy just curdles into poison. The poem's final line here is so chilling. My rage is logic, cold and steep, a promise that I mean to keep. This isn't madness, this is a calculated philosophical response to being utterly rejected.
And all of this, the failure, the fear, the revenge, it all leads us to the final, devastating conclusion of the prelude. It's the point of no return, and it's called the Mirror's Trap.
The warning here is an ancient one, right? Be careful when you hunt monsters, or you might become one yourself. The chase between Victor and his creation stops being a chase. It becomes a perfect closed loop. They are reflections of each other, totally trapped in a cycle of mutual destruction.
And by the end, they're basically indistinguishable. You have the father, who ran from his creation, and the son, who was completely defined by that rejection. Both are fueled by this immense force, one by ambition, the other by vengeance. And both are utterly alone, locked in a death spiral with the only other being in the world who could possibly understand them.
And that's the gut punch. The ultimate tragedy isn't just the creature. It's the act of creation itself when it's totally divorced from love, from strength, and from responsibility. That will to power, that great creative spark we started with, when it isn't guided by wisdom and courage, it becomes something else entirely, a will to monstrosity.
And that's where the prelude leaves us, with this final chilling thought. It suggests that every great act of creation carries with it an immense responsibility. And when we abandon that responsibility, it doesn't just lead to ruin, it creates a mirror, forcing us to see the monster that was hiding in us all along.